Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another edition of The Big Picture, episode 19, the podcast with great guests, great interviews, great perspectives. My name is John Allen Namu, and I'm not going to say who you are today. You guys will just introduce yourselves, Vizuri.
My name is Justine Wanda, and I am happy to be here. It's raining in Nairobi, so if you're out there, take care of yourself, and I hope you had a really good Mother's Day.
Why does that sound like it? Like somewhere in there, there's some bile for our.
No, me, I've not said anything.
No, I'm just saying.
Dimples excluded. I have not said anything.
No. That's what you're looking for. Yeah. That's the real thing. And
I'm Tom Ukwana. I am a reporter for Uncensored.
That's all you are, Tom.
That's all I am. That's all I do.
You're a human being.
I only live for
Tom. It doesn't make us look like we're just slave masters. But today on the podcast, we have yet another great guest. Hanifha Adam, the unstoppable, unflappable, indefatigable, indomitable, right? Hanifha Adam, unapologetic truth teller, writer, activist, journalist. And her article, it's called The Lie We Grew Up With, Your Tomorrow's Leaders. The Lie We Grew Up With, Your Tomorrow's Leaders. It's gone viral and it has elicited quite a number of reactions, not least from the person who not dominated. He took just a bit of, it was hardly a paragraph.
Yeah.
The COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli flew off the handle at Hanifha Adam, and I've been following what's been happening on your X and the kind of threats that you've been getting. First of all, Pole Sana, but we'll be just discussing that and many, many other things. But first of all, welcome to the show, Hanifha.
Thank you for having me. I've been seeing you guys a lot, so it's good to be here.
Hey man, it's been hard. It's been hard to get you. You have no idea how many times people have suggested Hanifa napiga simu, then sijui uko wapi, mara uko wapi, but I'm glad that we have you on set today. And we've got lots of stuff to discuss, guys. It's been a bit of a mixed week, right? Not least with your article and the kind of things that it's elicited. And so short brief on Hanifa's article. She's discussing the premise that, Kenya's leaders today are not the leaders that they ought to be. And you'll stop me if I'm wrong. That the youth occupy a very, very small part of Kenyan leadership. And this is not just political leadership. This is leadership in many, many facets of public life. And that the promise, you are tomorrow's leaders, has been instrumentalized to ensure, I think you call it pacification, right? Mm-hmm. Pacifying young people, to ensure that they never really question, they never really ask for your rights. But you have a history in asking and demanding actually those rights, mm-hmm. A very long and storied history. And what this has touched off for our audiences who are watching and perhaps don't have context is quite a bit of a debate, not just between Hanifa and the COTU Secretary General, Francis Atwoli, who's been at the helm for 24 years. Mm-hmm. Tom, you are 1 year old when Francis Atwoli became the Secretary General. That's crazy, man. Yeah. That's absolutely
just mind-boggling. Yes.
But it's not just between you, Hanifa, and Atwoli. It's between Atwoli and I've seen Martha Karua. Previously, prior to your article, I saw Kivutha Kibwana also chiming in and talking about this whole retirement thing, like, when are you going to retire?
Yeah.
And now, due to the petition that you've launched, let me just look at the numbers here. 11,891 people have signed a petition.
In 1 day.
In 1 day.
It was at 5,000 last night.
Yeah, it was
5,500. Absolutely insane, mm-hmm. Hanifa. That if this is not active citizenship, if this is not public organizing, I really don't know what is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hanifa, my first and perhaps only question for this first passage is, like, what motivated you to write about this misnomer of the youth being tomorrow's leaders? And why did you use the example of Francis Atwoli? Yeah.
Well, first things first, I think we need to debunk this "we are the leaders of tomorrow" narrative. And we ask ourselves serious questions. When is tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Who built this tomorrow? What is this tomorrow? So we are hearing tomorrow. When? When is this tomorrow? I think for us, tomorrow was portrayed, the idea of tomorrow was portrayed last year during the Gen Z protests. You see, leaders emerged. Everyone was a leader, doing things in their own capacity from wherever they could. So I think they're intentionally telling us this, you are the leaders of tomorrow, so that, you know, we are comfortable. They are being pacified. So it's become just a slogan. How is it, why is it a tomorrow when tomorrow is here, by the way, and the leaders you said were the leaders of tomorrow are jobless, wandering around, hopelessly, roaming around this country. And the people who said that are 75 years old, and they're at the helm of powerful institutions for decades. So we need to debunk that tomorrow narrative. When is tomorrow for us?
When is tomorrow? And that's, I like the question, but I also liked the examples that you gave.
Yeah.
That she was 12 years old when you first heard the expression, we are leaders of tomorrow. Well, I can tell you, I'm no longer a young person, but I was told the same thing. And I actually remember when we were told this. This was now during...
We are leaders of tomorrow.
Justine, this is your first and only warning.
Yes.
Ndio mimi ni mzee lakini must we advertise?
Right?
But on your leaders of tomorrow.
Okay. Anyway, yes, I was told this very early in our time. And the interesting thing about it is that every time I looked up to who those leaders of today were, at that time, people in the frame were like William Ole Ntimama, of course, Daniel Arap Moi, Nicholas Biwott, all of these guys in their mid-40s, going into the 50s and their 60s. And, you know, being told that we were leaders of tomorrow. But when I looked at the opposition as well, some of the people at the front were also quite, you know, advanced in the years. But why it felt truer for me when looking at the opposition was that there was this category of younger leaders who are really driving the change behind that. So transpose that to today, right? And if you were to paint that tomorrow, yeah, Hanifa, what does it look like? Because I think there's that question that a lot of people are asking themselves. What does tomorrow actually look like? And you ask yourself the question. So what does tomorrow look like for Hanifa?
Tomorrow for me, in our current state, we have a very high unemployment rate in this country, youth unemployment rate. For me, tomorrow would be, you know, we have a lot of wasted potential for youths. I wish they would be put into use. I wish youths would thrive in their talent. I wish institutions, which majority are older people who don't understand, I think, what the digital era is about. We have talents, new talents. So tomorrow would look like, for me, youths being utilized in these institutions, and wherever it is, they will thrive. We have graduates, unemployed graduates, and I swear I don't know how best to explain this. But if you take a look at these demographic statistics and what it is people have studied for and why they're still unemployed up to now, if we had a very working state, we would have each and every one of us, you know, utilizing their talents. This older generation, I'm so sorry, I'm not trying to bring ageism or stereotype them, but we are in the digital era. I think we have a lot of potential we are wasting with the youths and their talent that they're capable of doing. Last year showed us that. I don't know, but it was 80% digital. It was 80% because of the digital era.
Digital organizing.
Yes. So tomorrow for me would be institutions being replaced by new talents. You know, and kama umefika age ya kuretire, go home, please. We can't be out here locked outside.
Yeah.
Whether it's politically, economically, we are locked. Youths are locked outside. They're gatekeeping opportunities.
Yeah.
They're gatekeeping literally everything. They're stealing our dreams.
Yeah.
We're just outside, hopelessly watching them do all of this. We're just watching. Tumefungiwa. It's like we're in behind bars, watching these people steal billions every day. We are watching them steal our future. Tomorrow for me would be youths thriving everywhere with their talent. New talents getting in. I know it's hard. You can't counter unemployment 100%, but it cannot be this bad. Year after year, every single day, we have new graduates. Graduation ceremonies are not even ceremonious anymore. Who is happy they're graduating? No one. No one is even happy graduating, because where are you going? What are you going to do?
Yeah, I think Darius Sokola in his book about the protest, The Anatomy of an Evolving Riot, right, talks about how even the parents who have put their children through school are looking at the promise that is ahead and are wondering what's going to happen for my children. Their children are looking at them and wondering, why is it that my mom and dad have taken so much shit, like, excuse my French, right, from a system that doesn't seem to respect them. And so your point is well made. I think there's a lot of, in a sense, at least here, I'd say you would be preaching to the choir. But to those people who have a lot of respect for Francis Atwoli, why did you pick him specifically?
He's the perfect example, by the way, let me tell you. I'm not even, Atwoli's age is a big factor as to why he should go, but COTU as a whole, you see. So his age is a big factor. I will not lie. You can't be 75 and still want to run again. You see, there are new ideas. This is a new era.
From the soul.
It's a new era. There's nothing a 75-year-old is understand. Let me not go there. So I picked Atwoli, but like, I liked what you said. It was just 2 paragraphs of him and COTU. He's the perfect example. He's been at the helm of such a powerful institution for 24 years. 24 years. How are you not even tired? You see, he's been there and no tangible changes have been seen. For serious union around the world, as you're saying, I don't know. I hope you understand how
powerful unions are.
Unions are such powerhouse, especially politically. I chose Atwoli because just the other day he admitted that he is working for the government. COTU is for the state. And that is not the first time. Atwoli has been openly aligned with different regimes for years, openly. That goes against what COTU should represent at the unions, because you cannot cozy up to the political elites and still fight for the poor working class.
True.
They
you
cannot
look
go
at
hand in
someone
hand.
like one of his predecessors, Dennis Akumu, and you really, like, Dennis Akumu must be turning in his grave. Looking at some of the things that have happened under the stewardship, not just of Atwoli specifically, but in what unionizing and organizing has been like, for Kenya. And you're right. And I think this is why your article has touched such a raw nerve, because unions aren't just employees looking for their rights. They are a political constituency. And a political constituency that he himself was saying 4 million people. Those are very many people to have a very important interest in the country. Justine, I want to come to you first, and then Tom. When you saw this debate about youth being the leaders of tomorrow, and then now it became this whole thing between Atwoli and Hanifa, what were your initial thoughts? Like, what struck you about that debate that as something that you were left thinking about?
I think I'd like to agree with Hanifa, especially on the age thing. There's a very big disparity of how older people operated in the world. The world in which they existed does not exist anymore. And a lot of us just kind of try and understand, they're old and maybe their eyes don't see that well. But at the same time, we see it. We see how much has fallen apart. We see how much we've regressed for workers' rights, how much unions are actually manipulated and used against the people it's supposed to serve in every sector. We've seen this happen with doctors. We've seen this happen with nurses. We've seen this happen even like what are they called? Casual laborers. Like a lot of them are either fully ignored, they're not even at the table, but then someone will figure out a way to like tap into their frustration to mishandle not just their present but their future. Again, it just shows up like that. It's like a continuous stealing of everyone's tomorrows to like fill the pockets for now. So I will say that my initial thought was, I don't know how many people understand what unions look like right now, who they're supposed to serve, how they're supposed to be structured, and even the people who understand, are they able in those spaces to share it with the people who are coming into the industry? We saw, what's the piece that was done on the lawyers?
Or blocked at the bar.
Yes, blocked at the bar.
Yes.
We've seen so many engineers who are fighting for their rights. Like almost every single sector of people are begging to be let into the space where their stories are not, oh, shika 50K and look away. Like that's not
or in the
changing.
State House uchukue appointment letter.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And we've seen even teachers, like teachers' appointments are being hawked backdoor streets, because you're supposed to be able to get your appointment later in the mail if you had a working institution.
Yeah.
But because of how much corruption and how much the union itself is working against the people there, MPs are hawking teachers' letters and people are paying to get jobs.
Yeah. So is it a question of, as Hanifa has put it, the youth being locked out of opportunity, or is this a question of a system that is locking out undesirables in general from the feeding trough, right? Because there'll be someone who is my age who's been tarmacking for years, and he's like, I'm not young anymore, but I'm experiencing some of the same things, right? So Tom, actually, I want you to come to answer this one. What's your view? Is it both and, or are you leaning more towards this being some sort of strategy against progress, in terms of blocking progress of young people?
I think it 100% is exactly what you said. Because if I walked up to my father right now and asked him, what does COTU do? I promise you he doesn't think COTU is involved in his life in any way. But he works. And he's part of a union. He works in the medical field, so he probably is part of a union on that side. But we've been made to believe, actually, most people would think Atwoli is just a politician. No one knows that he actually has a role to play.
Yeah, like a political operator, not a representative.
But the
of
office
workers.
he's holding has such significance in Kenya, not just in Kenyan politics, but also in Kenyans' lives. We were just speaking about this, how the most important thing to him is the annual Labor Day, a minimum wage announcement. And then he retires. Not that kind of retirement, but he retires to his chambers and continues politicking, right? And being dramatic in interviews. But his job should be advocating for every single union in Kenya. And what saddens the most is to see that the person who is coming after Hanifa is a teacher. And teachers are the people going through exactly what Justine said. And to me, that just blows my mind. But I do hope that by the end of this whole conversation, people understand just how significant that office he's been holding for 24 years is.
That COTU as an institution was not perfectly designed for workers. Like maybe the intention was also to kind of buy into what they can get from workers, what they can take from workers, by having someone in that particular position who they can control. Because I have not read Sessional Paper 10, the one that was...
Sessional Paper 10 of 1965.
Yes. Tom Mboya Apia wasn't like the proper homie. He also shafted some people so that he could get ahead. And I think that... that shafting of the time was also, again, a stealing of people's tomorrows. And I think it keeps getting replicated after every generation. There are some people who fight back and they hold the line, but it's not enough.
Well, here's what I'll say about Sessional Paper 10 and maybe how it plays into it. It is a form of, not elite capture, but giving advantage to the elite. Because the crux of Sessional Paper 10 was that government resources would be dedicated to high potential, high yield areas. And then we'd have this sort of like trickle down effect where now the lower the lower potential areas would benefit from other places that have better rainfall, etc. But that essentially was shorthand for the same places that the colonials liked, right? And then it becomes this thing that's bastardized. Sessional Paper 10 then now gives birth to some of the rules that we've seen in terms of conflict of interest around, government employees owning business, etc. COTU and trade unions, even at the time of Tomboya, I would argue, was still powerful, still vibrant, still important. But what's happened over time is because of that political potential that they have to completely disorganize the table, right? And disorganize the table from the point of view of how elitist politics likes to play in this country. It's very orderly. It's very, now you're from a big tribe, you represent this. It's very orderly. But COTU as an interest group threatens a lot of that. And that's why, in my view, it was important. But I have a question for you, Hanifa, right? Because, again, you're hitting at something so important. But part of the debate has now become about this young versus old. And I agree that there's a very big mismatch between who represents young people and young people for the sake of our audiences, but just generally, are 3/4 of this country. So in essence, they are the majority. Who represents young people, right? And how do you speak to older people? Because, we also live in a context where we have these kind of cultural rules, should I say, where there's how you speak to an elder person. So is it even your job, or should it even be your headache, to toe the line between how you speak to an elder person, right, vis-a-vis getting your point across? Where's the line, for some of the older heads who are watching, between respect for elders and the contribution that they've made, and correction of the many, many missteps that they've made? Is that even something that you debate when you're thinking about someone like Atwoli?
Okay, the line between calling them out
and being respectful, so to speak, because
it's
again,
definitely respectful.
Yes.
We've been hearing that a lot. Respect your elders. I get that a lot now with my fight with Atwoli. So they're telling me I'm such an arrogant, girl who lacks discipline. So I think that statement of respect your elder is meant to make them run away from responsibility or being called out. So you're calling someone out, demanding for accountability. They counter you with respect your elders, respect your elders. And at this point we're in, and where we are at, I think people are tired. People are so tired. We don't even know which lines to cross and which ones not to. People are fighting for survival. You can't keep lecturing us about, take care of your kid, teach your kids. You're killing their kids.
That's the point. It is existential. It's not a question about manners. This is a question about people's lives. And it's very difficult, in my view, for you to be polite when you're talking about how you're going to survive over the next couple of days.
Just to add to Hanifa's point, I think your grandfather can be a Sudi. It's a thing. You can have someone who does not really represent the for lack of a better word, the intellectual potential that is around them. And I will give an example. Sudi said, I don't go to parliament. I don't have anything to do there. People just go there to collect envelopes and fart and sleep, which is a fair assessment. But at the same time, he cannot read. If he cannot read the bill, how is he supposed to pass it? And those bills end up affecting regular Kenyans. They end up affecting the people of Kapseret, the people he represents. So an older person can also be
Fools grow.
they can be foolish. Exactly. And just to reiterate, it's like every kind of denial of responsibility that they keep doing and the performance that they keep trying to play into and trying to act like it doesn't affect Kenyans, it's not going to change. Like denial is a river on the expressway and it doesn't have dimples. So you do that for method, whatever you will.
Leta hiyo kalamu ni hapo. Denial is a river. Hey, where? Okay, so no, but that's a fantastic take.
Yeah.
Hanifa, and this is something that I guess I've asked you in other circles, right? But I want to ask you here today. It's not just the debate and the insults. There have been death threats. There have been threats to your life. And this isn't the first time. How do you weigh that cost? How do you bear that cost?
It's hard. I would say it's draining too. I always have to act nonchalant publicly because people are just waiting for you to. I've been dealing with a lot of cyberbullying that being led by government propaganda machineries.
And this is for years now.
Yes,
it's not just,
every single day. That is where it's so personal to me. The fight is very, very personal because these people don't work. They just waste their time and our money, on useless things like propaganda, paying bloggers to taint people's name, activists. I get threats a lot, and it didn't begin just now. I've been in this space for 5 years. I think along the way, I just found a way to deal with it. I will be lying if I say I'm taking extra precautions on my safety. I just move around like ordinarily, just like a headless chicken. You just pray. They do not scare me. You cannot scare someone who is not scared of dying or death. And I think we've died severally living in this country.
My question to you was, why aren't you afraid? Why aren't you afraid of death? Why aren't you afraid of the sticks that they carry? Because that's something that a lot of Kenyans are afraid of. Why not you?
I will not act that tough. It does destroy you and break you to a certain. It breaks you a lot. I break down a lot, mentally, physically, but we cannot afford. I cannot. Let me speak for myself. At where we are right now, I keep saying where we are right now because it's important. We cannot afford to lose this sight. We cannot afford to give up. And it doesn't scare me because I don't know, maybe it's something natural in me and the need for change, that passionate, endless need for change that that fire that will not be, put out by just mere threats or people running away from accountability. It comes naturally to me. I would be crying one day and saying, you know what, I'm done with activism. The people close to me know that. I break down a lot and say I'm done with activism. But the next day I just hear Atwoli. And it's renewed naturally. I would say for me it comes, I get that question a lot. Why are you not giving up despite all of this, the slander, the cyberbullying, the threats? You'll not find a husband like this, blah, 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 blah. It's a lot. I will not lie.
It is a lot. And sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question of why I'm not scared of it and why everyone shouldn't be. You will not run away from it. It will always find you. Even if you give up and just giving to fear and just try to settle somewhere, let's say, away from the political chaos. I don't know, you can never outrun it. You can never out-earn it. It will always find you. Bad governance will always find you. You cannot outrun it. At Useme, you just, even the middle class, I think it got to them. They've been very comfortable for too long. No offense to any middle class here.
Hakuna middle class hapa. We are all paupers in this.
But I think we shouldn't buy into fear. It is their strategy.
It is a strategy.
It's their strategy. So we cannot afford to live like that. We need to grow some spine and face this.
And Hanifa, look, this will be, and I said that was going to be one question, lakini tumeingia flowing ingia tu. You mentioned something that a lot of people are curious about, right? Young Somali lady, young Muslim woman, there are certain strictures, there are certain cultural beliefs, perhaps even pressures that are on you to keep quiet, to not be heard as loudly as you're being heard, to get a husband, to do all of these things. Now, how do you balance that against the duty that you feel, and how do you explain yourself to perhaps people who are well-meaning when they say that? Because I don't think everybody who comes and tells you, by the way, Hanifa, achana na hii kitu, it means it in a nefarious way. There'll be people who are friendly but are thinking about your concerns, about your welfare, and then they come and ask you that. So what conversation do you have with them to then, I guess, get them to your point of view? Yeah. Yeah, please.
I think I would like to ask you, what are the positive consequences of your bravery, just so people can understand what
Great
this
question.
means for you? Yeah.
Question.
I'll start with you. So one of the things that keep me going is the kind of influence and a bit of power I have to drive change. So I can make a tweet about a certain situation and it changes the next day. So why would I give up? Such power and influence, such trust within the public sphere, which is very hard to get. The public. Yeah. So a lot, honestly. I keep forgetting to mention this. The majority of people who've been supporting me endlessly. I enjoy a lot of privilege. I can now say, I need a laptop, I need a phone, and then people would volunteer saying, this is for your good work. So that is what keeps me going, by the way. People tell me to not give up. Anything you need, if there's, for your safety, just ask us, we will give you. So the support is a lot and it's amazing. I'm so amazed. And so the positives, the pros of what I do that keeps me going is that we've changed a lot on Twitter. You've seen it. I think you knew me before the Gen Z protest. So we've been able to solve problems that existed for decades in just few months. We've been able to, even the Gen Z protests just started on Twitter. So it's created it's been so impactful. I can't even afford to give up because I know what I can do. That's why I can't even go against myself and continue with activism, because I can change a lot. We can change a lot through a tweet. So that's one of my positive. I can change this with a tweet. So why not? A TikTok video. You've seen what the digital world has done. And your point of, I don't know if I've answered.
Yes, perfect answer.
Yes, so your point of, so let me say this, being a Somali lady from the minority group and a Muslim lady and a lady, being a woman too, it's hard. So being a woman and being in this space is already hard enough. So imagine being a Muslim and being Cushitic. So it's extremely hard. The misogyny is doubled. So I have to fight a lot of battles. The misogyny, the slander, the political class, it's a lot. And I am always in meetings with elders who've approached my dad. Say, my dad is always approached. Even when I appeared in the BBC documentary, they're always pressuring him, telling him, tell your girl to pipe down. Tell her to not appear in this international interviews and all. And my dad gladly, and I'm so glad that he lives in Nairobi and doesn't have the typical Cushitic mindset, not in a bad way. I'm just saying he just grew up differently. But my dad has never really tried to stop me from doing anything. I think along the way he got used to me being like this. He gave up. And also one thing with me is no one gets to tell me, no offense to my parents, I love them all and my family, but no one can sit down with me and try to get me out of this, of doing the right thing, even if they're my parents. And they understand, which is okay for all of us. So I'm so honored to have such a family. No, you'll never find any of my family members trying to meddle or, push me in a negative way. And for people to make people understand this in a lovely manner, I would say a lot of Muslims are proud of me. So they will always tell me, that's our girl, that's our girl. It's
That's nice.
yeah, it gives
I'm
me a lot
happy
of
that
hope.
there are more people who support you than
Yes.
those who then
Yeah.
are trying to to come down on and pull you down, right?
That's what community does.
Exactly,
Yes, yeah.
exactly, and that's a positive thing. Like Tom, you met Hanifa in the trenches of 2024. Looking back at ukikimbizwa na kuwekwa kwa nini, kwa Mariamu,
Yeah.
right? Looking back at that time, and both Hanifa's role, because you were reporting this, right?
Yeah.
Both Hanifa's role in the moment and what that has become as a moment for Kenya. Like, what's your assessment of people like Hanifa and the work that she does?
I probably I don't know if you remember Justine, but I said this, that she can't, and this is it's a wrong assessment, right? It's a very unfair assessment, actually. That she can't do any wrong in the movement. That was in that time. I understand that she's human as well. This is a lot of weight to put on her shoulders.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I tend to feel the same fire that she feels. And I know you've even called me out for this, Jan, that I tend to sometimes blur the lines between journalism and speaking my mind. But I just can't help but do it. The same way she can't help but keep on tweeting about things. Because I feel as if we're in the fight of our lives.
Yeah.
Not, and you said this again, that I got a birth certificate before I got a journalism degree.
Why are you throwing your words back at words back at me?
You say that. You say that. Yeah, you say that. So to me, I remove this. I use journalism to lend myself to society. So I understand where she's coming from. If you ask me today to give up journalism, and I remember somebody asking me this, I told her that there's nothing else that I think I know how to do.
Yeah.
Just because that's the one thing that I feel I can do that will change my life and also change the lives of people around me. To me, this feels like the fight of a lifetime. It's a fight of a lifetime, because these arguments about respect, about following procedures that are meant to cage you, these arguments, they dwarf in comparison to the future that we are killing in exchange for these things. The respect that the president keeps asking for and his stooges, it compares in no way to the future that they steal from Kenyans day in and day out. So if these hashtags call these people names and they're stealing money from the government coffers that would take someone to hospital and provide medical care, then there isn't a word that can be said to them that will measure up to the amount of effect that they have on Kenyans' lives every day.
Yeah.
I don't think that argument stands. I know it stands in the court of law, but in reality, it's a very, very weak argument that is meant to tear people like Hanifa down.
Yeah.
And also journalists, because we call people frauds all the time in our reporting and we pull the receipts for it, right? But the fact that I called you a con man in an article and pull the receipts of your conmanship, you can't accuse me of being disrespectful.
Did you call me a
No, I
con
call your con.
How many angalia sana? Like, hey, my God, like, where's the article?
I'm just saying that that there's so much accuracy in everything that we say online as journalists and Hanifa as activists that should stand before these arguments that people put up, like you should respect your elders. These things that you're doing are dangerous. People storming into parliament was driven by frustrations. The August House did not respect their opinions on things, and that stole their future from them.
And people like Hanifa emerge, and I'd argue the same of you as well, Justine, that in as much as you had been doing a lot of social commentary with comedy, and Hanifa, you've been doing this online. You know, I remember the Paipu issue. I remember what you said about Watu Mandela that got you in a lot of trouble. You know, in as much as you've been doing all of these things, I'd say possibly because of the history that we've had with leaders kind of betraying the cause, there are people who look at you in the same frame and are counting down the days and the hours to when Hanifa will betray her convictions. And to this point, a question that arises oftentimes is, what do you make of people like Kasmuel Makore, Morara Kebaso, who very recently also wants to sort of join up with Kasmuel? Is it an unfair assessment on your part of what he's doing, choosing to use a system that is already established to generate the kind of change that he's looking for? Same with Morara, because he's using formal political structures, etc., and organizing, in a way that he knows. Is it an unfair assessment by you that he is a betrayer, or is it just different strokes for different folks, and that people shouldn't be looked at as betrayers, as Morara was saying the other day? This one has turned and shaken her head. Yeah, but let me start with you, Hanifa. Like, what do you make of them?
Well, that is a very hot topic.
Why is
A very
it?
long
I mean, it's opinion.
Yes,
You see.
and-
Anyway, carry on. Yeah.
I would start by saying that the Mau Mau killed the traitors more than the white people. So for me, I think people, I'm going to speak for myself.
Yeah.
Because I do not think anyone who got absorbed into the same system they were fighting against, anyone dining with the oppressors, has anything to say about the oppressed or this fight we've been having since last year. We are in the same space. We were in the same space with Morara and Kasmuel. I know what it entails. We refused to be at the table. We flipped the table. So there is no justification. There will never be any justification that anyone who sides or dines with the oppressors will give that will make them, not guilty of betraying us.
Yeah.
And I keep repeating this. People were killed. I think we have a duty to never forget that. People went to the streets. We were just lucky that it was not us.
Yeah.
But we have a duty to represent them. We have a duty to continue with the fight. And the fight will not be continued with the oppressors and the people that caused their death. And I said this on Twitter, and I'm saying it again. Kasmuel said in an interview that our people are turning up on the autopsy table, so we cannot turn up at the dialogue tables or something of that sort. I didn't articulate it as well as he does and did.
Because you don't have a suit.
Yes,
So,
it's important.
What changed? So what changed for him? He's now at the table having dialogue. You cannot have dialogues with people who killed the people you were fighting with, the people you were alone. I get very emotional when I talk about this, but I don't care how petty people call me or emotional. You cannot have dialogues with your oppressor. You cannot eat at the same table that you want to flip.
Yeah.
You honestly cannot come out and say you're representing us, the youth, the fight, this good fight that we are in, and you are aligning with the oppressors. He goes around with the ODM, and the orange tie he likes wearing. He is on TV every single day trying to delegitimize us, saying this and this, who and who was paid, who was not paid, this and that happened. He's delegitimizing us. That didn't work for him. Now he wants to come back. And Morara, I think he's confused. I don't know. I'm actually baffled and shocked at how this guy is so flexible. He's I don't know. His flexibility cannot. I don't know. Cannot sielewi. Why do you not have a stand? Yani, stick somewhere.
Yes.
You were just with Martha Karua the other day.
Yeah.
And now you are with Kasmuel telling us to forgive him, and you are looking at your phones, mockingly laughing at what people are telling you. You are laughing at trying to act cool. And that is the playbook of the political class, where that is what they're doing with our fight. They're mocking it, look like they're cool, and they're not bothered. So I will say this in a very genuine manner. and we are not fighting. So when I talk about Morara, I'll call out Kasumul, which I honestly do not want to engage in much with it online because people tell me I'm being a distraction or there's a lot of infighting. But I will say this, anyone willing to tolerate the lack of integrity lacks the integrity themselves. You cannot be selective with the integrity.
Okay, I agree to the extent that there's a certain bar that we need to be able to set. But I think a week or two prior to your article in The Nation, Louis Ngunyi wrote an article about moral absolutism. I was just trying to pull it up to remember that.
I saw that.
Right, you saw it, right?
Yes.
And there's also a constituency of people who believe that Gen Z's young people writ large are being absolutist in their approach, right? Like, I can't deal with you because you are not up to my moral sort of like code. And I guess it begs the question, are there people who exist in this space that then young people would be willing to work with, or are we dealing with kind of like a black swan phenomenon where we know that it could, that sort of person or people or movement could exist, right? We just haven't seen it yet. And this will be my last question before we move on. Justine, I'll start with you.
This is a difficult thing to ask because I am probably a moral absolutist because I just don't trust you if you, again, with the flip-floppy thing, like today you're here, tomorrow you're there. What are we supposed to trust? Who are you? So if you come with different faces every single day, we will never know when the wolf is going to show up because like you're going to betray us at some point. And then the second thing is like a lot of us are just kind of getting into the political space as a situation because many of us are just regular dudes just going about our lives, you know, like that's where we're coming from. So as much as we want to hold hands and kumbaya because people can change, I don't believe that. I think there has to be a line. We should draw a line. We should draw a line about what kind of people we want to have in the movement. But I'll give an example of Martha Karua. I absolutely love that lady. But sometimes I'm just like, you were Matiang'i. Baby Pendo's case was thrown out. Was it last week?
It was last week.
It was thrown out last week because they said there's lack of evidence. And it's not just Baby Pendo who was shot. It's the Kianja Koma brothers. It's the 39 protesters who were shot and targeted because they were of Luo descent. Like, we have such a big problem when it comes to justifying the kinds of people who we are willing to compromise for, and it has burnt us. It has burnt this country to what it is right now. We are actually collecting ashes, trying to rebuild a country. And so someone telling you, oh, you should really rethink who and what alliances you want to have. We also have the right to question what those alliances look like. Are these people we can trust? Honestly, I think if you're going to write a paper and say, if I betray you, these are my consequences, then maybe. But if it just feels like you can jump from one hole to another, then no.
Tom, yeah, please weigh in on this because there's the Constitution, right, which draws that line in the sand for us very, very clearly in terms of the kind of leaders, the quality of the leaders that we have. Are Kenyans asking for more than that in pointing at the Morara Kebaso, Kasmuel Makaure example? Are we asking more, not so much for the letter of the law and what it says about who our leader should be, but the spirit of the law that was embodied in the protest, where there was that moral clarity that we all had? Like, what are we asking for? Because I think that's something that also confuses a lot of people.
I don't think we're asking for anything inachievable, Jan. Why? It's clear. If you condoned extrajudicial killings when you were at the helm of the Ministry of Interior, what makes us think that you will not condone the same thing when you have absolute power? It's not that difficult for us to find leaders who don't have blemishes. Okiya Omtata is there, right? Maraga, the former CJ, is there. There are many other examples that exist but are not getting that much attention, partly because of us, the media. we love to sensationalize things, and we love these leaders who say silly things so we can get clicks and rage bait. But I believe that this question of moral absolutism it's a surrender in some ways. It's a surrender. It's sort of to say we can't get better, so let's just go with what we have. Yeah, let's just go with what we have. It's not ambitious. It's very bora kiongozi, si ndio? Tuchukue yenye tuko nao.
Exactly what it is.
That has been our problem, and that is what we're trying to run away from. The at least mentality, the less evil person.
Yes.
I think we are okay. We are not being petty or moral absolute. So, but I think Lewis meant in his article also, the part I can relate with. For me, because I am a victim too. First of all, when I see a politician anywhere, like we can be at a space where I don't even know you are there. You can be behind me, and someone takes a picture and post it online. Oh my days! You see, people just turn on you, pounce on you. So there's never been a concrete evidence or anything people can hold me with and say, you did this. But you see people, blabbering around saying you did this. You're in NIS. So I think part of his article was talking about that. So, but me, I think hawa tu ni wale on a project. They're just projecting on you.
Projecting fears.
Yeah, they're projecting. If they were in this space, this is what they would have done, even with the money. Someone asked me, why didn't you steal? Like, why? How?
In your comment section.
I'm disgusted.
But that's what you're being accused of. Atwoli, uliiba.
Yes.
Kwanza ziko wapi? Suani. As Kenyans like to say, za cabbage. Where are they? Hanifa, unaingia tu hapa na tunakupatia maji hakuna kitu. Seriously though, like how do you respond to those kinds of allegations, right?
I think you see, one thing with the Mchanga, and I still have PTSD. It is something I'm very proud of. I'm extremely proud of what we achieved with the Mchanga. So I didn't even have authority over the cash. I surrendered the cash to Mchanga, and that was the best thing I've ever done. I think the best decision at that time. So someone wrote to me one time, qua text, total strangers. It's always been strangers who held my hand. He told me, if there's no darkness inside you, the darkness outside will never have any effect on you. So people can say anything literally. Even Jesus was crucified, people will say anything, always. And in this place that I am, the only weapon they have against me and try to weaponize it against me is the Mchanga. They literally have nothing, even with the Mchanga. So they've weaponized it against me. Every time someone wants to come after me, they just use that.
The same thing.
Cook things. The same. So it's been weaponized. It hurts. It genuinely hurts because okay, here we go again, the crybaby. Sometimes this feels so unfair.
Take your time. Take your time. No worries. We're here.
I said I didn't cry today.
You take your time. Yeah.
Okay, it does feel unfair when people just throw words around or follow a trend of follow what's trending.
Yeah.
And the haters bandwagon. A lot of people are after me, apart from the government machinery.
Yeah.
So anyone that would disagree with me would just pull out the Mchanga thing. It's easy to say you stole money, even after I accounted for it publicly and by a very verified auditing company under the CPA. You cannot cook such figures that was audited by companies under CPA, I think. So no one would take such a risk. Why would anyone even try to do that. So I publicly accounted for it, but they still weaponize it against me.
you. Yeah.
It sucks. I did my best with this, and I asked God why I had to be in this position if it's going to be weaponized against me like this.
Yeah.
It sucks, and I think people are projecting, and I'm glad I still have the support, the majority support and love. That is what keeps me going. So it's the price we pay for.
Speaking of love, kuna mtu hapa kwa comments. I'll just say, just so that we can get a bit of levity, is Phantom says, natujua kama Hanifa akona mtu. Na kama sisi nywele ngumu tuko na chance tukishoot shot. So just know that in as much as the people who are hating on you, there's lots of people who are fans of you.
They keep me going.
And they do.
Equally love and support them. And we will win this war.
Yeah.
We've got one more topic to discuss.
Yep.
And look, last week was chock full of stuff. Internationally, there was Pope Leo the 14th, who, he was Habemus Papem. I don't know how to say. He became the new Pope, right?
Yes.
Celebrated his first mass, talking about Gaza, etc. There seems to also be white smoke between China and the United States with regard to a trade deal. They're supposed to be talking about the details today. In a couple of hours, if not right now. Anyway, utaniambia.
The Catholic,
Yeah?
the white smoke thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, and at home, a very important process is now going into Parliament, which is the nominees for the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission. Have you heard that collective? You know what? You are saying on behalf of all Kenyans. Yes, people are tired, but we must pay attention to what's happening. Even if, for those who believe that this process has been messed up ab initio, that we understand exactly what's happening. Tom, Justine, Hanifa, you guys have been following this thing. Me, I've been fighting my own wars online last week. So So Tom, you take this one.
I think it all just plays to the anxieties everyone has. Why this guy, and why was it done in the manner in which it was done? Okay, these names that are in this list, I can say fairly obscure. No one knows about these people. No one knew about them, at least not as much, before this list was taken to the president. But this is the same president whose people have spoken of extending term limits. We've had people saying he'll rule for, I think last week another MP said 10 more years of Ruto. And I know Justine is getting incensed with everything that I'm saying right now, but I don't think it's a long shot for Kenyans to ask who are these folks and what are they doing here.
Yeah.
Because you also have a history of IEBC chairpersons just playing cards with the election results and rigging them in the end. I don't think the anxieties are unjustified. These people have fairly, let me say, clean records, and I can prophesy that in the next 1 week we'll hear of Uyu ni mtu ni msomi, somebody with a clean, but we also have wasomi stealing from the government every day and night. So I don't think these anxieties are out of place. I don't know if Justine has anything else to say, because from the way these people look to me, they look like the typical, should I say, technocrats that are appointed into these positions, people with very little political.
Well, Ezekon, not really. So he was a county attorney for Turkana County.
Yeah.
In as much as it's
And there was a scandal.
and there are
In
scandals.
Turkana, yeah. But was he a politician though? Then
He's not a politician, but I think this is the thing, and this is not to cast aspersions on his personality, but some of the evidence that's been coming out about the corruption.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been Senate committee investigations, the kind of corruption that's taken place in Turkana County, while Joseph Nanano, who is a presidential advisor, was at the helm of the county, and while Bwanaithekon was his county attorney. So there are, as you've said, justified reasons for suspicion.
Yes.
Right? But we can't hang people on suspicion alone. And I wonder what needs to happen and maybe Justine, Hanifa, this is where we can chime in. What needs to happen with that institution to build trust in it? I remember when the Electoral Commission of Kenya, prior to it becoming the IEBC and then the IEBC, was one of the most trusted institutions in Kenya. This is prior to 2007, with the handling of the referendum, with the handling of the 2002 election. Samuel Kivuitu's ECK was, bar a few institutions, one of the most trustworthy. And you could see what happened when trustworthy organizations deliver a result that people feel that kind of faith in. With an election that has so much riding on it, what do we do to build trust? Right? Is it even our job? Una smile, Tiari. Is it even our job to build trust?
I think it's already lost.
It's already lost.
Yeah.
So then how do we go to an election with an institution where there's such low trust, with a result that literally will determine our futures hanging in the balance?
Honestly, at this point, and I think I've said this before in a previous episode, I think we should just be given our ballots and you just like hold it up in the air and like everyone gets to see what you actually voted for. Because these closed ballot sessions, they're being taken advantage of. And also...
We tried that in 88.
No, I'm saying...
We tried that in 1988 with Mlolongo, but anyway, carry on.
And then there's like the appointments are being done by the executive. This is, I think, where the biggest problem is, because like the executive appointments have been continuously outrageous. We've seen the reshuffling of cabinets every 3 business days, where it's like, okay, today I feel health. Ni wewe. Like we can't keep we're doing guesswork on the cabinet level. And that's something that's affecting everyday people.
Yeah.
And then we are tasking this very executive that has made some very questionable decisions over the last couple of months with a very dire and extremely important process to the Kenyan people. And we are asking them to do the right thing. They can't even tell us who is abducting Kenyans. They can't even tell us who is shooting Kenyans.
Well, I mean, today he said that it would stop. But anyway, yes.
Yes, okay. You've hit the stop button. Okay, and is that how justice works now? It's like, oh, I pressed stop, Imeisha.
After
like,
refusing.
Yes, after refusing.
After denying,
Yes.
after being pushed. And it's only when there's a foreign leader who's in power that all of this conciliatory talk is kind of pulled out of the shelf, dusted off, and spoken about. Eric Mugendi, our managing editor, has a great question, and I want to direct this to you. It's not really a question as much as it is a statement, but it's something you can speak to. He says, here's a question: why don't we know the people in charge of electoral commissions in places like South Africa and Ghana? Because when institutions work, the people at the helm remain invisible. What's your take on that? Like, if the institution of the IEBC worked, would it matter who was at the helm?
I think yes. And currently the problem we have is he's playing into the patronage book. He is appointing his cronies, appointing people he has ties with. So as long as it's not neutral, we can talk about this the entire day. Nothing is going to change. I asked on Twitter in the morning, I told people you need to talk about IEBC. This is passing us. We need to pay attention to what is happening at IEBC. But you know what people are saying? Everyone has given up. They're saying we don't care, who Ruto puts there or who is at the helm of this institution. They will be guiding our votes when the time comes. So that is how badly people have given up and how badly IEBC has lost its glory. People have given up, and it needs to be neutral.
I'm looking at these comments now.
People have given up. Yes, they don't even care anymore. They're saying we will stay the night. We will have our own system of controlling the votes, of seeing what's happening, and we can't even guarantee the success of that. Unfortunately, we don't even know how that will turn out. How have we really reached this point as a country? Is this what we're doing?
Yeah, it's really a very weird and sad place that we're in, and this is my point all along. And I said this last year of the fertilizer scandal, and I've said it previously on many other occasions, the most damaging work that this regime and regimes past, because it's not purely the work of William Ruto's regime. I say that the Uhuru Kenyatta regime has had a big part to play in this. Even the Mwai Kibaki regime has had a part to play with this. The Moi regime, up past, but what this regime particularly seems to have attacked with a lot of, voraciousness is institutions.
Yes.
State capture.
It's even more than state capture. It's like setting a match to every institution and wanting there to be a lack or a lacuna so that you can then operate in the absence of these kinds of things, and you can be the be all and end all of everything. And once you do that, once people can't put trust in an institution as critical as the IEBC, we know where this road ends, right? We've been on the ground reporting what happens at the end of that road.
Every election since 2007.
Exactly, right? And the denigrating of institutions in our country is going to cause us a lot of pain in the future. This is why I'm of the view that we have to really think about, as you were saying, what's happening at the IEBC. What needs to happen for us to be able to build trust in it, or to have it in some shape where people will accept what the outcomes of that election will be.
Is it too late now?
It's not
Because
too
we
late.
started at the wrong foot.
Look, it's not too
People with
late.
questionable history and
Guys,
getting into the
remember, we thought that the Finance Bill 2024-2025 was a fait accompli, right? It was withdrawn. Yes, there are parts of it that came back in supplementary bills, but and this is not to encourage anything, but just to say that there really is a lot of sovereign power that we hold, and we need to start exercising it to protect these very institutions that we must put our faith in, right?
What does that look like?
I don't know, and that's the sad thing. I can't give you an answer.
The courts.
Yeah,
The courts.
yeah.
Captured.
As well.
We don't know, but you know what?
Mm.
Let us find what that answer is. Let us solve for X. Because, Justine, if we don't solve for X, being mathematical, come up
Like not knowing maths.
for Leo,
For
come up
X.
for Leo, right?
For X,
Yes.
solve for Twitter.
Like, if we don't solve for this, we are putting ourselves on a dangerous path.
Yes.
We really are. And I don't want there to be another election where I'm reporting on the ground about the kinds of deaths that I've seen. Right? That for me is something that I don't want to do. I'd rather, report on an election where there's a successful outcome. And that's something that's possible. Yeah.
To your point then,
Yeah.
I think there's a burden that a lot of Kenyans carry. There's a complicity in the desecration of institutions.
Yeah.
And I think this has happened with Hanifa's case. We see how people attack you and they're like, these people have been here before and they'll be here when you leave. And I'm like, you're accepting a broken future. You're accepting, again, selling out your tomorrow for the now because you believe these people are too powerful to be held accountable. I think that's ridiculous. There's a complicity that a lot of Kenyans carry. And I actually have a big fight in this, a big issue with just saying that as a blanket statement, because there's a lot of moving pieces in how people operate and how they see power and how they interact with power. But at the same time, I actually do believe our refusal to comply with their incompetence, with their ineptness, with their desecration of the very things that are making this country work-ish. I'll say work-ish because I don't know if it's really... Yes.
Functioning is a good word.
Yes. So a lot of that complicity has to stop. Like everyday Kenyans, no matter how tiny you feel in the whole domino thing, you kind of have to hold the line for the truth. You have to hold the line for your own future. You have to hold the line for your kids. I know many people don't care about much, but you do love your kids. I hope if you love your kids, then do a big Mother's Day for their future. Like show up for them in a way that protects them by not allowing the institutions that are supposed to work in favor of them to fall apart.
To fall and to die.
Yeah.
I just want to contribute one thing though, and I'm of two minds here. I want to ask Hanifa this before I jump onto the exact point. When you step outside Hanifa, do you receive hate or do you receive love or do you receive both?
Ooh, I receive a lot of love.
Mm.
I've never even received any hatred outside Twitter.
Outside Twitter, which then I frequently like to say this, that Twitter it's not, but also again, that's why I say I'm of two minds. Twitter isn't where real Kenyans live there. They are on Twitter, but Twitter, as much as it represents the reality of the country, it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
There are so many stories to Kenya, and I believe we don't get to hear the discontent as much as we think we do. I come to this conclusion because of we just hear, you see these two tweets in the
It's a shooing.
yeah, it's a showing. Yeah, it just assures you that it's somewhere there, right? So if you log off Twitter, and if Hanifa logs off Twitter and she goes outside and she receives love, and I'm sure this isn't only in Nairobi, it's in many places, right? You go to Coast, it's the same love.
Even in Ghana.
Even in Ghana, it's the same love, right? Then, and as we were driving around Nakuru Nairobi highway and around Bomet hivi uko mbele.
Yeah.
We were buying something from a vendor who's at this right smack at the center of the president's region. And one of the people we were with asked them, ujama mlitupea amefanya hivi na hivi. Then the guy was like, ujama ametudanganya. And to me in my head I was like, okay, are these folks feeling what we are feeling? Because when I switch on the television, I see the president in these places still having massive support. And not just him and his cronies. But I go offline and I hear also of all these other things, right? I go off the State House YouTube channel and there's this other side of Kenya that is very revolutionary, if I can say, that represents the spirit of the country.
Yeah.
And those are the people that I think are holding the line. People like me and you.
But you know, Tom, in a democracy, there'll always be those people who believe things should be the way they are. And people who have now perhaps a more futuristic view of how. And I think that's what a democracy ought to be.
Yeah.
A democracy, it should be a place where that tension, that debate always exists.
Yeah.
Because there is also such a thing of tyranny by people who believe that, what they are doing is good for the country, right? We can also be tyrannical in our own desires to be, to want more for the country. Why, if that didn't exist, then I'd be worried. And I'm actually happy for that, for that debate.
Yeah.
What I'm unhappy about is the instrumentalizing of that debate, and not encouraging a healthy debate about our democracy, but shoving us into corners and telling us that you're tribe X, you're person Y, you must act like this, you must behave like this, and because you come from Wasingishu, then you must believe as we believe. That for me is the challenge. That for me is what we should be getting over. That for me is why the COTU conversation, just to bring this home, is important. Because the COTU conversation is about more than Atwoli versus Hanifa. The COTU conversation is about the livelihoods of people who put bread on the table, like your father, right? Every day, having a stake in this economy and having a representative who actually is speaking on their behalf. It is that bastardizing of an institution that we then now see replicated across the board with things.
And I really hope that this conversation isn't Hanifa versus Atwoli.
No,
it's more about the importance of COTU.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
It picked up the pace and attention. I think he just opened the Pandora box.
He did.
Everyone was just waiting for him, I believe. That is why the hashtag picked up. The fight has gone
Atwoli retired.
viral.
And as we were saying that, we started at 11,891. It's 12,054 signatures.
You see, that is enough proof.
Yeah.
The people are tired and connected by these atrocities that they experience day in, day out. Atwoli is he should be a representative of the poor working class.
Mhm.
But I even shared the article. He goes to JKA live every single day, blatantly bragging and showing off his expensive lifestyle. This guy, the representative of the poor working class, this goes around creating memes for TikTok, calling people Shenzi, Shenzi, and saying he has Congolese musician in his house. He's saying that on live. He has musicians. Anapenda raha. He said anapenda raha. He's also blatantly, the arrogance. People are being laid off unfairly.
Yeah.
No one to fight for them.
Yeah.
No one to speak for them. But your leader, your representative, is on live TV saying he loves Raha, has Congolese musician in his house, and can have anything. He imports clothes from.
But you know, this is actually.
Yeah.
But you know, there was a and as we wind up, as they all purple.
Yeah.
My gosh,
Is his house just like a
that's a very Kuria Kanyinge. I don't know if you guys remember Kuria Kanyinge. Anyway, he was a politician. He was an MP for Limuru, and he used to be he used to work in a department in government that had to do with I can't remember. It had to do with vehicles and standardization. When he joined the system, no 2 days would he wear the same suit, and every suit would match the car that he drove. Like, I saw this personally because we were neighbors in Limuru.
Crazy.
It was
that was
mad.
like the Sonko before.
Yeah. Crazy. Now, for real, that's actually a very good template. But look, guys, we are, you know, past time in terms of the time that we had for the conversation. Hanifa, I'm going to leave you to give us your last thoughts about the state of our democracy. But I wanted to read a couple of comments here and then just dap the people who are online. Thank you for watching. Phantom, Clint, obviously Eric, MC Silas, Sanyo Stone again from Samburu County. Thanks for watching. Dab Zone, not Zone says Morara's manifesto is a chat GPT version of UDA. clown face emoji. Phantom says Morara has a messiah complex and he believes he's here to save us. Okay. He also says of William Ruto, I don't see him going home though through the ballot. Unfortunately, my hope is he'll infuriate people back into the streets and then we'll send everyone home and have a fresh start. Well, I mean, your opinion, Phantom. There's people who would be of the view that we should wait until 2027, but you know what? It's a free country. Enoch 005 pushing me to wade into something that I was cooked on all of last week.
Proper cooking.
Yeah. The sequel. Burkina Faso is not a democracy. It is a revolution, and revolutions are not built on comfort. They are built on vigilance, sacrifice, and survival. Kenya needs a revolution. He's quoting, obviously, Ibrahim Traore on this. Look, a lot to be said, again, of Ibrahim Traore. I think one of the things that perhaps I should have said last week is, and what is, stop laughing, you.
You want to be cooked.
Trying to pick what like, you know, but one of the things that I should have said is that perhaps aside from the facts that we were talking about, this is the symbolism of a person like him and what he means for Africans. That someone who would speak that way and move that way and want to change their country in the way that is coming out. I think for me, that's the symbolism that a lot of people are identifying with. I identify with it. You get?
It's fun.
Yes. Yeah. I identify with it as well. Clinton Abdallah says, keep up the good work, Hanifa. Never tire. Last words, Hanifa, about this debate on young people versus old. If there were a magic wand that you could wave, and you have a 35-year-old, 45-year-old person in power and replicas of them across Kenyan leadership, what would would that be now your Thanos moment where now you go and you retire? Or what is it that you would then require of those leaders, those young leaders that you now want to see, get through these gates?
Well, I think one of the problems we have currently as an uprising, as a movement, we were told we are not a movement, is we need to consolidate as youths. If like I had that magic stick that would do one thing right now and it would be 100% right, something I'm trying and with other comrades to put forward is youths consolidating and coming together. We just, everywhere. There is beauty in the disorganization and being leaderless. But if I could, I wish we can get this right. I'm trying to write an article about that for Wednesday. So how can we come together, not wanting to associate or align with the parties that have been there that do not serve us anymore? So how can we consolidate, come together, minus all the corrupt shenanigans that we've been dealing with for years? How can we come together? I get a lot of messages and calls of youths everywhere who want to vie, asking me, what can we do? Where can we go? Who can we align with? Because they do not want to align with the same political system that has been oppressing us. So I am so glad that we are getting this right by wanting a fresh start. But I am so disheartened that I can't put my hand, or neither one of us can put a hand to this and say, this is how we should move. This is how we're moving. And when I say youths in leadership position, I mean youth. We mean youths with integrity, youths who are more of leaders than politicians. So I guess not everyone that comes up and is youthful that wants to get into political power is good for all of us. I wish you can just, but we are working on that. One of the cons of being leaderless is that we don't have that collective voice, that voice that tells us, let's go this way, let's have a sit down. We are aggressively leaderless. You'd come up with something and they tell you, well, not get nani. But I see the beauty in being leaderless. I believe we should decentralize leadership. Everyone is a leader in their own space, at their own capacity. That is what last year proved. So am I answering your question?
Umejibu na umeniletea hadi sosa.
I just want to say that we will get this right. I know we look a bit politically disorganized, but the political trajectory in this country has changed. The political awakening. Actually, you said outside Twitter, we see there's a lot of dissatisfaction with the system. Yes, and we are seeing it. I love it when I'm seeing people in the villages having protests, because no one on Twitter told them to do that. No one on TikTok told them to do that. So I believe there's the political shift we've had, and we just have to maintain that. And I love how people are complaining that they've been turned into activists nowadays. Everyone is an activist. So people are complaining that we used to talk about this on a certain day, but we're here fighting this regime. I don't want to say the word, but yes. And we will get this right. We just have to consolidate and move forward. I am so glad that people are so aggressive against joining the system or aligning with them in any way. I'm just so glad about that. And we should be proud of ourselves. I don't care how the older generation comes here to tell us about respect or disrespect. You killed us. You see, you murdered people. What moral authority do you have to come outside and claim respect? You're claiming respect because we're asking you for accountability and asking for good governance. No one, and I repeat this, and I'm saying this boldly, no one in the political class has any moral authority to demand for respect. And we need to define and redefine the term respect. You cannot run away from responsibility by telling people to respect you, respect the elders. So no one in the political class, I know I'm being petty, but none of them have any right, any moral authority to demand anything from anyone. People are hanging by the thread. You're just dangling carrots on our faces, misleading the youths. You're peering through crisis. No tangible answers nothing. Yani even there they talk. There's no, yani, we're the only ones left, honestly. Hakuna watu wengine.
Akia Mungu, I'd have wanted you to go on, but nitalimwa na watu
yeah.
wako hapa nyuma.
Sure.
But look, Hanifa, wanasemanga period.
Nilikuwa nangoja useme.
Wanasemanga period.
So mimi nasemanga. Anyway, Tom, Justine, in a minute, what are your thoughts about this conversation? And perhaps, Tom, you can also add some of the laws that you're looking forward to. And then Justine, I'm sure gonna, one or two things to say here as the comments come in. Martin Wali Owino says, big up. He's saying big up team, but I'm sure it's mostly for you. History will remember you when we finally cross a bridge. Kenya is pregnant for change.
Oh.
Powerful.
Tom.
So I say this every week, people should lend themselves to a better future in however way they can. And for us, I think we're going to lend ourselves today by looking at a specific bill here that was tabled in February last year.
2024,
proposed in February last year by Senator Esther Okenyuri. How to say this right? It's the County Civic Education Bill, Senate Bill number 4 of 2024. And this bill, it depends how you look at it, right? But from where I sit, it's a wolf it's a wolf dressed in sheep clothing. It's a wolf in sheep clothing, right?
Yeah.
Because
I'm just putting it in the chat for our guys on YouTube.
So it says that the purpose of the bill is to establish a legal framework for the promotion of civic education in Kenya as an essential tool for building responsible citizenship, civic engagement, and democratic values among the citizens. And it seeks to empower every Kenyan at the lowest level with civic knowledge. But
altruistic sounding.
Yeah, sounds nice, right?
Yeah.
At the surface, it sounds nice. But inside it, as much as it claims it releases funding and establishes legal frameworks around civic education in Kenya to make it mandatory for the government to fund it, it puts some guardrails around a space that shouldn't be guardrailed. Because civic education in Kenya is working at the moment. We have civil society organizations that are actively working to educate Kenyans on the finance bill is a successful example of that. It was people online and CSOs putting themselves out there and their causes out there. But this bill, among the things that it's proposing, is it wants to make sure that every NGO in the country that seemingly, and this is one of the vague things that they'll use to exploit this bill to their advantage, and by them I mean the state, which has been autocratic since its inception. It claims that every NGO has to be certified by the government to conduct civic education.
That's crazy.
Yes. Now to me and to all of us here who are sat here, I believe this feels like a bold attempt hidden behind so many words by the government to control CSOs. And you
control the narrative.
Exactly. If you control the CSOs, which have the machinery, and by this I mean the intellectual machinery to dissect these laws and put these things out for Kenyans to understand them, that means you're controlling the narrative. And you'd remember that last year, CSOs were the same organizations that were blamed for causing quote-unquote anarchy.
Ford Foundation.
Yeah, Ford Foundation.
Yes, I swear. You should be a victim of it. Like just pour the oil. Yeah, Justine. So that was mean.
Yeah. So the purpose of this bill looks nice on the surface, but underneath it are guardrails that shouldn't exist. Civil education shouldn't be hoarded.
It shouldn't be hoarded, nor should it be the province primarily of government to dictate who can and can't talk about civic life.
And this comes in light of Mukuru Social Justice Center being summoned by the DCI for screening the BBC documentary and talking about it, and also conducting civic education.
That was wild. That was really wild. I saw it on my X today, and I'm like, anyway.
Yeah. Also, Boniface Oguta, I would like to say this in solidarity of him. He's been battling court cases since last year from Kisumu. He's one of the major mobilizers there. He also has a case tomorrow, Tena. So they've been trying to
sort of
Keep
exhaust
down.
people
Yes,
with
they're
these kinds of
exhausting him.
cases.
They want him to give up and just be done with
Inaitangwa lawfare.
it. Yes.
And
Yeah.
Kwame called it grinding you down.
Grinding you down, yeah. Justine, your final words.
I would just like to point out that there's a Pan-African White Conference on Family Values that is coming your way on 12th of May. When is today? Yes. So I think it's 12th of May to when? To 15th. It's 12 to 15th, yeah. And it's white people, essentially. They added like a few black people there so you don't suspect. And they want to teach you how to run your families and who constitutes a proper family, which is crazy to me because a lot of the things that these particular institutions peddle, they peddle a lot of purity culture. I think there's something, I don't know if, Hanifa, you've ever heard this, it's called biblical sexuality, which at us, we're just like, me, I don't know which chapter of any book that is. And also they're going to fight a lot of like abortion rights, any rights to divorce. So I will just say this, African families are complicated. We are not structured the same way as families outside. We don't only value nuclear families. We value families across generations. We value family that's immediate, family that's more complicated, people who are adopted into those families. I'm an adopted child. I know, like, there's no point in the entire time I was living with my adoptive family that there wasn't a person in there who was not being assisted. And it was a very welcoming community, but it was not all nuclear. So if you make all this, like even at the very basic level, the family level, you're trying to govern how people, what constitutes a family, it's going to make it very difficult for people to take care of their children. They're trying to come after comprehensive sex education. And we've seen comprehensive sex education actually helps people, helps stop pedophiles. It helps stop abuse in families because then kids know how to speak up for themselves. They feel very protected in the communities that they're in. So introducing any kinds of laws that stop people from speaking out, from having for family and community that's not conventional, actually puts a lot of people at risk.
Yeah.
And I'll say one of the things, we saw statistics that were released either a week ago or like 2 weeks ago that showed a lot of people who get abortions are actually married women. And most of these, unfortunately, stem from economic issues. Some of it stems from GBV. So the moment you stop people from accessing healthcare, from accessing legal options, from accessing information that will help protect them, we're putting a lot of people's lives at risk to protect purity culture, to protect nuclear families that actually don't exist fully in the African society. And also we're just lying to people because people need help. People need a lot of help. And if you stop the help at the point of like, you're a married woman, you should put your head down and keep going through all the suffering because, I don't know, heaven is submission or something. But at the core of it, you're actually endangering people's lives. This is not about family values. This is not about safety for kids or women. This is not about anything outside of neocolonialist terms being brought into people's houses.
Yeah, at its core, I think it's the Trojan horse, like you said, for neo-colonial thought in trying to be able to dissect what religion, what spirituality, what values that has in an African home.
Yes.
And that Trojan horse, unfortunately, is not very well disguised.
Yes.
Ilitengenezwa mahali.
Yeah, and it end up dividing people even more because the moment you start breaking people down into parts and telling them you can't be this, you can't be this, you can't be that, it's very hard for people to formulate community because they end up being excommunicated by their families because they are no longer a virgin.
Look,
it's
I mean,
this spiral.
That conversation, an entire show.
It is.
That conversation, an entire show. Unfortunately,
we don't have enough.
It's not this show. But look, I mean, points well made, guys. And I think we ought to kind of keep our fingers on the pulse of these specific movements, so that we're able to, at least from our little perch, explain or dissect or analyze what's going on. I want to return in my closing thoughts to the debate that you forced onto the public, not forced, but really introduced to the public, between young people and the old. And whereas I see the value that old people have to contribute to fertilize the ideas of young people, I agree that young people in this country have been held back for too long. And interestingly, change has always happened on the back of the efforts of young people. And so I want to remind people of a song that I like. Yes, I looked for the lyrics, yes, and I'm not going to sing it. No, you'll understand why. I'll just read it. Hapa sijiamini. No, where tulieni. Okay, why don't we play Guess the Song? Haina noma una namna, tuseme bora uhai, haina maana. Achia noma Maulana, life kwenye streets kakiumana. Juu kuna siku youth wataungana. Haina noma, una namna, wakadinali, mtoto wa mama. So you see, if I sang that song, I would butcher it. I don't have the grit in my voice to be able to sing it, but I love that. I love that chorus, because it really speaks to the hopelessness, but at the same time, it strikes a chord of hope for when young people really do unite and rescue this country from itself. And I'm waiting for that day. I hope that I'll be here, right? With those many words, guys, thank you very much for watching this episode of The Big Picture. Most thanks to you, Hanifa. Hanifa, a lot of people don't say this of you, and in our journalistic skepticism, it's always important for us to stay on one side of the line. But as a human being, I know the value of what you do, and I appreciate the value of what you do. And I think it's important for you to be told that, because in as much as you will make mistakes, and we'll likely be there to critique or criticize them, it's important that you know that your work has value beyond the things that you see and you observe. And a lot of people here would agree with that statement. Hanifha Adam, thank you very much for joining us on The Big Picture. You've been a brilliant guest. Yeah, folks, the show keeps getting better and better. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your criticisms. Some of them, right?
Western puppet.
Right? But thank you nonetheless for watching the show, for commenting, for being part of this growth and this journey as we try and do what we can as journalists, as people who are in social commentary, and to really look at the state of our country and our continent and try and ask questions that perhaps are uncomfortable, but always look at the bigger picture, right? This has been episode 19 of the Big Picture podcast. We'll see you on the next one next week. We'll catch it. You can catch this episode on all of your Spotify and Apple and podcast platforms. But for now, wacha tuseme asante and goodbye.